Russ?
Quick pre-show for all the Jet fans out there, and even fans of other teams that are always looking for some sort of hope. Yesterday, the Jets actually won both Rookie of the Year awards, which they've never done. Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner both won Rookies of the Year, offensive and defensive, which is tremendous. And then we find out an hour or two later that Darrelle Revis, which is no shock, gets in the Hall of Fame, but also Joe Klecko, who'd been waiting an awfully long time.
Yes.
And so those are some nice surprises for the Jets. Now, the only other thing I have to add is because former players feel like they need to say Joe Douglas's job is safe. You know what? You're general manager. You failed on 2 high quarterback picks. Nobody's job is safe if you can't find another quarterback. That's all I'm going to say on that. But it was a good day to be a Jets fan.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't trust Joe Douglas with another high first-round pick on a quarterback if he goes out and he trades for Aaron Rodgers, or Carr or Garoppolo or somebody who's established. Then I mean, Jan, how many more years do you think they give Joe Douglas? 1?
Personally, I think Douglas has actually done a pretty darn good job in terms of uplifting the talent on the roster. Although Russ, I thought the first quarterback wasn't his. He came on board after the draft.
No, but fair enough. He didn't draft him.
So he didn't draft him. Look, they made a mistake on Wilson. They probably should have taken Fields or somebody of that sort there anyway.
But he could have gotten rid of Darnold for somebody else. Like, he chose not to do that. That's really
right.
What
Could have gotten rid of him, right? So I think Douglas probably gets 1 to 2 more years. I mean, the big part is the offensive line. We don't know what's going to be with Becton, who's had a great first year and then maybe eating his way out of the league, or injury-wise getting his way out of the league. Again, Mike, you can laugh, but it's true, right? I mean, the problem was he wasn't in shape 2 years ago and he's gotten injured back-to-back years. There's either he's fragile or there's other ramifications and reasons as to why it's happening. Losing Vera Tucker this year was huge. But again, I am to think Douglas has done a pretty good job. I'm also not one of those who thought Saleh should be removed. LaFleur did an okay job. Look, losing Breece Hall was a bigger impact than most people realize because he was one of those between the tackles and get outside where the offensive line wasn't as big of a factor. When he was lost, it was huge. But as Russ knows, as somebody who's been beating the drum for Klecko to be in for years and thinking it's been a crime that he hasn't been in, I'm ecstatic that he got in. And look, the future, in my opinion, is a lot brighter than it was 2-3 years ago with this organization, besides the fact I know people hate the owner. Besides the fact that I know the stadium is like a gray monolith, which is nothing special to go to. And they haven't done a particularly great job at MetLife Stadium compared to what it used to be. But it's a lot more fun being a Jet fan, at least these days, than it was a couple of years ago. Though, get me back to 2008 and 9 when we were going to the the AFC Championship game, and I was a lot happier then also.
Yeah, I mean, remember when, it's funny, Joe Klecko, I have a tie into Joe Klecko. So first of all, he is from Pennsylvania. And graduated from Temple, which is a college that I attended. And he was, but he graduated from Temple in 1977 or 76, I guess it was, when he was getting drafted. So I mean, at that point, Temple University football was absolutely horrible. Like, you're talking about like a Division III team at that point. So that was not. And there's never been great, but they're a Division III team at that point. And I used to see when I was going to Division II games with my dad at University of Delaware, and we would see them. They would play Temple every year. So I remember seeing Joe Klecko play as a kid in college. And also the person who moved in across the street from us for a while was Walt Michaels.
Oh, wow.
Lived right across the street from us. He was a defensive coordinator for the Eagles for until 1976, I think it was, somewhere around there.
Yeah, and then head coach for the Jets.
And then head coach for the Jets for a really long time. But
not that long, like 4 years, 4 years.
And he never should have gotten fired either, which was the biggest mistake they made in putting Walton in as the coach. But
yeah,
that's a whole other. We don't have time for that.
No, he's coaching.
On the other side of his house,
he was of all the coaches. I was looking at the Jets coaches. He's got the longest tenure of a coach for the Jets.
How many years?
On the other side of X house, Rich Kotite lived.
No, he lived. So Walt Michaels lived right across the street from us in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, when he was defense coordinator for the Eagles. In 1976, and he took over the Jets from 77 to 82, which so according to this, 6 years. There's no other coach I can see on here though that went that long.
No, I think Weeb was there.
I'm looking at the list right now.
How many years was Weeb there?
Weeb was there from 63 to 73. Okay, so he was there 10 years. Yeah. But besides, he's the second longest. I mean,
second longest.
Mine, and
that still surprises me though. Yeah.
But he was a great guy, and he actually was scouting Joe Klecko at Temple University, and went with my dad and I to a game because my dad and he were pretty close. We went to a game at what was then Veterans Stadium to see Temple play the University of Delaware with Joe Klecko it's kind of a real bizarre kind of combination.
That's awesome. No, that's awesome. Block Michael Cohen for talking about Dan Marino. Sorry, Mike.
Okay, just briefly here. The rest of the Football Hall of Fame class: Joe Thomas, the offensive tackle from Cleveland; Zach Thomas, DeMarcus Ware. DeMarcus Ware. I mean, maybe it's Kevin. Maybe it's something about players who've played like. When I was a kid, I put up these guys on a pedestal. Zach Thomas and DeMarcus Ware and Rondé Barber don't exactly strike me as Hall of Famers. They're like the Hall of Famers. They do. Yeah, I know.
To me, they do also, Mike. You're to me, you may be in the minority on that one.
I mean, I pointed out to you, Zach Thomas had 1,000 solo tackles. Over 1,000.
But yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, those names sound pretty good to me too. I think Football Hall of Fame is a little more challenging to do because oftentimes the guys you're evaluating has no statistical comparison, and unfortunately, and I hate this having been on these committees, people always want to make it about statistics,
right?
Including this group that we have, and I get it because that is a easier basis of comparison. But, when you actually get on those committees, they caution you against that because it is so difficult to compare eras. So,
and I can tell you from having a connection from somebody who was on it, the voting process for the football hall is nightmarish to get through. I mean, the number of approvals and the number of votes basically to kind of get the population, granted, obviously different than baseball, but not an easy kind of bar to jump, as we've seen by guys having to wait several years to get in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Well, they're doubled that, there's two ways of doing it. The way baseball does it with a lot of voters and just doing it by mail. And then there's the committee approach, which I believe football still does. And that committee is much larger than hockey's, for example. I think it's twice as large.
Wow.
And that's hard. I've been on 18-person committees, and that gets a little. So imagine if it's 36 or so. So
sounds incredibly hard to put together.
Yeah, just briefly, the other names: Revis, Rondé Barber, as I mentioned, Don Coryell. That one I think was overdue. The Air Coryell from I think plus I think he was offensive coordinator with the St. Louis Cardinals.
He was.
Chuck Howley and Ken Riley, the great cornerback from I think the Cincinnati Bengals.
Cincinnati. Correct? Yep.
Yeah.
Cincinnati.
Yeah, he was good. That's good.
And the guy who I'd love to see get in, and I know Boomer's been all over. Ken Anderson's numbers are pretty impressive. That seemingly get ignored.
I never thought he was
every single year.
There we go. You just made my point. Yeah, his numbers are really good.
Look, he took 2 teams to the AFC Championship games. He got beat by Montana. He got beat by Montana in the Super Bowl. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
Right after right around 2:05, we're going to do our Super Bowl predictions for you guys. So we're not going to delay now. All right, here we go. Ready? I know you guys are just dying for that. So that's a big teaser. All right, ready? Here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Friday, February 10th, 2023.
I'm Michael Agello, and I'm going to get Ack a calendar for Christmas.
I'm Jan Levine, and do we have 10 months to wait for that?
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm going to bet on the length of the national anthem for the Super Bowl.
Oh, are you really? I like that. And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday, no matter what the date, no matter what the year. We'll fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And, mostly every Monday and Friday. Sometimes we can't. But usually we do.
And there were some comings and goings yesterday, weren't there?
Like yesterday we didn't do it, for example. But normally we try. Yesterday we would have been on the air at the time that this major trade happened, which was the second domino to fall after the Horvat domino, was the Tarasenko domino. And this one, what I love about the dominoes falling, and I think I created that. I don't know, maybe I didn't, Kevin, but what do you think? I mean, it's funny, people use it all the time.
Oh, the dominoes falling?
Yeah.
Well, I believe that's been a sports cliche for about 70 years. But
that you say you love the domino falling thing. So maybe
I do like that. You
Yeah.
use it, but I think it had been around prior
But
to.
yeah, so this domino
Yeah.
falls though and gives us many more clues than the Horvat domino, in my opinion.
Well,
and first to make, and I in my blog today I did predictions where I thought everybody else was going to land because the dominoes are leaning. But let's talk about Tarasenko first. Okay. Let's go with you, Jan. No Patrick Kane. Instead, Tarasenko.
Which we'll get into, given the quote that just came out about Patrick Kane, I'm sure.
What is that?
So a couple things. Yeah, we'll get to it. Trust me, it's an interesting quote.
Okay, I'm excited.
So in terms of the trade itself, right? So just kind of level set. So conditional first rounder, which is the lower of the two first rounders between the Rangers pick and the pick they got from Dallas and the Niels Lundqvist trade. We're presuming both teams will end up making the playoffs. It's a conditional 4 that becomes a 3 if the Rangers make the playoffs. Seemingly, they're in fairly good shape. It's Sammy Blais moved back to St. Louis for some salary cap relief, as well as Hunter Skinner, who was a 4th-round pick a couple of years ago, who's probably more of a depth defenseman. In return, they got back Vladimir Tarasenko with 50% of a $7.5 million cap hit prorated taken, and Nico Mikkola, who is a left-handed defenseman. So in terms of the framework of the trade, I mean, a couple of things. So Chris Drury said later on that the belief was the cost to acquire both for Timo Meier, which I think we all expect is going to be a lot higher, as well as for Patrick Kane, was going to be higher. Now, Kane, I think part of that also is the cap implications, because if you didn't get a second team, you're taking on board about 5.25 mil versus 3.5 mil.
Right.
The other point is there is a relationship clearly between Tarasenko and Artemi Panarin, similar a little bit to what happened in Chicago between Kane and Panarin, but this one goes back to like World Juniors and other international tournaments. So the hope is that you're going to put Tarasenko and Gerard Gallant tweak the lines today, which I'll go through a little bit because it's interesting. Some of the suggestions, and I will self-pat because I actually hopefully wrote about it in my blog today, hoping he would make this move. They're putting Tarasenko to the right of Panarin's Zibanejad, hoping that Panarin's passing ability, and especially his passing to the slot, will help Tarasenko, who's struggled a bit this year with a hand injury and some other injuries, but clearly for about 6 years was elite and a big reason why the Blues won the Cup. The kid line remains together with Hedl, flanked by Kakko and Lafreniere, and now the newly constituted second line has Kreider with Vincent Trocheck, and Vitaly Kravtsov has been moved up. Granted, that line was being used a bit more of a checking line with Jimmy Vesey, but now with Kravtsov, the hope is maybe his talent will get unlocked a little bit, and that allows both Vesey and Barclay Goodrow to be moved down to the 4th line with Julien Gauthier, which extends the lineup. And then defensively, Mikkola basically immediately replaces Ben Harper, who becomes a 7th man, and Lieber Hayek was placed on waivers. And thank God Almighty, we're free at last was pretty much the comment of every Ranger fan, because for some reason Lieber Hayek must have some pictures of Glenn Sather and Drury, because he's been hanging around for many more years than he probably should have. Hard not to like the trade. Look, cost to acquire a first rounder is not cheap, especially in a fairly good draft, though 2024 might be better. But it is the higher pick in terms of number-wise of the two of them, which blunts the impact. And part of that also is because St. Louis is taking on salary. The Rangers were desperate for a shoot-first top line or top 6 right winger, which is what they got with Tarasenko. In addition, it gives them a guy to play opposite Panarin and Zibanejad. And they also basically improve their defense. So the one thing they still probably need is another 4th liner. And there's a bunch of guys who've been mentioned: Nick Ritchie, Sam Lafferty, Andres Athanasiou has kind of been mentioned before. There's a couple of the guys that are kind of potentially in the mix there that could be potential targets. Tyler Mott is the name that's come up a lot, who would probably be a perfect fit for that line. He's cheap enough to kind of fit in, as they're projected to have 1.6 million cap room. Nico Mikkola, look, if you ask me, I would rather had Megna, who went to Seattle for a 4th rounder. I thought it'd be a better fit. I thought guys like Oli Mata, Major Dmitry Kulikov, or Jake Wallman might have been better fits, but the hope is that Mikkola, who struggled a bit, will be a better fit with the Rangers system than with the St. Louis system. He allows Braden Schneider to hopefully grow a little bit this year, as he's been blunted by having been playing with Harper and Hayek at times. So, I mean, overall, it's kind of hard not to think it's a win-win. And as you talk, right, obviously you'll go through the other dominoes, but where Meier might end up going now is probably the next one. And in essence, the arms race, the Islanders get Horvat, Rangers get Tarasenko. Let's see who's the next one, maybe in the Metro, to maybe go after a big winger.
Russ, go ahead.
Yeah, so couple things. I don't know if that top line will exist for very long because there's nobody to actually go get the puck. Like, they're all like premium scorers, premium shooters, but nobody's a corner guy. I would have put Trocheck as the center because at least I know he'll go get the puck. Because even Zibanejad's really not going to do that. That's the only little change I would make with that. I like the trade. I hated giving up a first-round pick for anybody in this draft. I don't know that 2024 is any better. This is a very deep draft, and I know that for certain now. I think Hunter Skinner is a third pairing talent in the league, so it's not like for the Ranger fans that say this is a steal. Well, it's a first or third. It's a guy who could play on the bottom pair for another team, and St. Louis is a good drafting team. So would I be shocked if St. Louis pulled 2 good draft picks out of this? No, I wouldn't be shocked. So I think in a couple of years, you're going to look at this and say, all right, well, let's see the impact that Tarasenko had. I think it's a good move for the Rangers. It's definitely better than Patrick Kane. I still don't know if this puts them in any better position to beat Boston, Tampa, or Carolina, though.
Cab?
What is it? I think, Cab.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I think, it's a pretty good plan B when you get a grade A talent like Tarasenko. And I think it really speaks to, and Drew even implied as much that the cost was too high for Kane, especially given his injury issues. And, there's also still some uncertainty surrounding exactly kind of what's going on there.
Yeah.
So I liked it a lot. I love deals where you get a top talent and then the GM says things like, but the key was McCullough,
Right.
Like, I love those kind of deals.
It just made his shopping easier.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, when you buy and you get the second one free, you buy something, you get the second one free. McCullough is a big guy. Not that that's a huge factor with the way he plays, but he's a pretty good shutdown guy. And I looked it up because I wondered how many games he now has. He's up to 140 games now in the NHL. So he's played pretty good. I've seen him play. I like him. I mean, he's not going to be a difference maker, but he's going to contribute. And you're going to feel your defense is steadier when he's at his best. He's one of those type guys. So, and, I like the early shopping. You get it done early. Now you're settled. You're not worrying about it. Your team can settle into, they got the guy that's everybody thought they were going to need to get over the hump. So, it was just a good deal for Drury. I don't love it from the Rangers, from the Blues perspective. I know Russ, does, but again, the first round pick, we'll see, and then anything after that, who knows?
Well,
it also depends if they can re-sign Tarasenko. Go ahead, Mike. You go first.
One thing, Mikkola was one of the premier penalty killers for the Blues on the blue line. So that will alleviate, guys like Lindgren or maybe Trouba during a playoff scenario to him play, big, he can clear the front of the net. So I think that was a factor. The other factor is they gave up the first round pick, not only to get Tarasenko, but to get St. Louis to retain 50% of the salary. So I think that was definitely a factor. But I think overall the whole thing, and I don't think just because Panarin and Tarasenko played on the 2011 Team Russia team in Buffalo.
It was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago, and I remember it well. And that team got drunk in a hotel in Buffalo, and they won coming back from 5-0. It's good that they know each other, just like it's good that Panarin and Kane know and like each other. But I do think the big factor here was the question marks about Kane, and the comment that came out here, and just to move it along to the Kane thing.
Well, one thing about Tarasenko, one more thing. Why are we assuming the Rangers are going to re-sign Tarasenko with what?
Yeah,
I don't think they are. They don't have the cap room, and right now, honestly, with 60 million cap room or so, and Philip Hedl, who's basically his price is rising daily, and Lafreniere and K'Andre Miller this year, followed next year by Lindgren as well as Kakko. They need to keep cap room, and if the cap's not going to rise sufficiently after next year, they're in a massive cap crunch. So I don't think there's.
I don't even think that's in play, from what I hear.
No, but Ekman said it, so I kind of wanted to.
I didn't say they would re-sign Tarasenko.
For me?
I said no.
How did we just start that conversation?
I thought X said they were going to re-sign.
X mentioned it, so I just was.
I haven't heard that anywhere.
No.
Okay.
What I was saying was,
heard. Sorry. No big deal.
No problem. No problem. I was trying to get my word in. But no, I was just trying to say that, you when you look at what they gave up, it makes me feel like they aren't going to re-sign Tarasenko is what I was trying to say. Because it's not like, and I think that the plan is for them to sign Patrick Kane in the summer. I think that that's clear as day.
I don't think they're going to have the money to sign Patrick Kane.
I think they will,
unless he takes less. And but the
he's got to take less.
He's going to have to take a lot less.
Yeah, like
to
3.5
into the salary structure. I don't even think they can, Mike. They can't fit that in. If Dylan Cousins just got 7.1 per year, and given the way Heedle's played lately, his value is rising. You're looking at 4 or 5 mil at a minimum now for Heedle, which wasn't the case a month and a half ago.
And you're probably going to have to sign Keandre Miller to a bridge.
And Miller also is going to cost you a pretty penny.
Well, let me finish.
Let me read the Kane quote here, then we can continue. Right. Okay, so Mark Lazarus quotes Kane on the deal. It's not like the happiest I've been to hear about a trade. If things are going to happen, that was definitely a team I was looking at. It seems like it kind of filled their void and went ahead and made the deal. Now, what I was saying to Jan before we started is, how is this going to affect Kane? Because clearly from that comment, any place he goes or any team that's interested, they know he was their second choice. And I don't know, if any team has an aim of signing him long term, because I think it's been out there pretty much that he wants to go to the Rangers. I don't know if that's true or not, but if you're Dallas or if you're Vegas or if whatever team you think up in terms of Kane, how anxious are you to go after him? Plus the price that Kyle Davidson apparently is asking for, and plus Kane might just say, "Hey, I'm going to have off-season surgery and that's it," or I'm going to have surgery and be healthy and go into next year and say, "Screw you, Chicago."
Right. Yeah, a couple things real quick on that. So I do think that even though this was we all kind of knew, and Kevin even brought up that he heard that this is where Patrick Kane wanted to go, for sure. We didn't necessarily know that it would actually be this year 100%. And like I said, I know Heidel's played really well. I know there's certain things certain players on the range they have to resign, but I also know the ownership there really wants Patrick Kane. I got a source there. So it's going to be interesting to see. Like, to me, the way the Hawks have handled the Kane trade, from talking to people who've talked to them about him, has been kind of weird. Like they basically, because it was apparent they were going to trade him since the draft, right? Like the draft, when they basically just dumped everything, right? And people were trying at the draft to talk to him about Patrick Kane, and they kept saying, we're not interested. We'll let you know if we're interested. And because of his injuries, they kind of continued to say, we're not interested. We'll let you know if they're interested. So that more than, I think, people being given a big number for Patrick Kane, there was more of a perception of how big it would be to trade for him than Chicago actually talking to a lot of teams, because Chicago played their hands so close to the vest on Kane, apparently, that teams were, very, interested. Now, I do think that there's other teams that can get Patrick Kane, but I do think there's a chance that Patrick Kane might have the surgery and just say that, this is it, because he wanted to play in New York. However, like I said before, Vegas is going to be very tempting for Patrick Kane. I just feel it's going to be very tempting, because without Stone there, that's a team that could win.
Not if Logan Thompson's injury is a severe one and he's undergoing an MRI today. So I'm not sure if Aiden Hill is the answer there for them going down the stretch.
No, they'll have to get a goalie.
We'll have to get a goalie too, but then I'll have another more.
Anton Khudobin.
I mean, I think Patrick Kane will. He's such a competitor. You think he would likely want to keep playing
if he's got the bad hip, and it's impacting his ability to get up and down the ice. I don't know how. I mean, look, I'm to love Kane. I just don't know how much of an impact he's been able to make if he's unable to utilize the speed he normally has. It's not one I see compensating too much for not having that speed to get up and down the ice.
And frankly, Kev, it's almost a similar situation to the Tarasenko deal. Davidson probably is asking for a first-round pick, not just for the value of Kane, but for retaining $5.25 million, and that's a hefty
money. But this is a season where I think that's almost a given. I think it's hard to exact a premium when everybody knows you got to do 50% in order to make it work. You know what I mean? Like, this is a really unusual year where, as one GM laid out to me, if you go and you do the math, it doesn't work. Right. There's not enough money available. So somebody's going to be, left out in the cold. So everyone knows you've got to do 50%. And even in the case of the Rangers, I hope I have this correct, but the actual amount of money they're paying Tarasenko is far less than his cap hit, so it doesn't really cost the Blues all that much to retain 3.75.
It was
I think it was $5 million. Yeah,
the real money was 5.5
$5 million. Yeah,
yeah,
5.5. Yeah, okay. So,
they've been trying
but anyway, so I don't know. I don't think it's a two-part thing. I think you're calling up. You're just expecting that's going to do it. But I thought Drury's account made it clear that the cost for Kane was more than Tarasenko.
It sounded like that for sure.
That's insane. That's insane.
I'm just curious as to how, and I think the assumption was going to be more than this too. I mean, you would think, but I'm just curious.
I think you have to factor in. I think you got to factor in standing within the organization and the length of time and what he and Taves both mean to the organization optically as well. So they can't just let him go for letting him go. They need to get back somewhat of a return that makes it worth their while to do so within their fan base as well.
But Jay,
they don't trade him. So
right. I mean,
I talked to one person who said there was a great amount of respect that Chicago has for Patrick Kane, and to make it, they did not want it to appear like he was being shopped, right? And that that teams like you had to come to them and talk to them, and then they would or would not talk to you depending on what they felt. There's that. That's actually interesting.
They may not have shopped him, but he's clearly bummed out that the Rangers didn't want him.
No, I mean he definitely gave him a list of teams because he had to give him a list of teams.
I'm sure Kyle Davidson has done his due diligence in terms of checking in with teams that might be interested in Kane and Taves if they hit the market. But the thing is, what's a better solution here? If in terms of Davidson overplaying his hand, you get a second-round pick for Taves or a low first-round pick for Kane, or you get nothing for both of them and they walk away over the summer. I think you got egg on your face if they just walk away for nothing. So you can't control that.
You can't control that. You can't control that.
Yes, you can.
I think
there is another factor. The other factor is financially. I'm sure Chicago's not sold out for the season. And I'm sure fans want to see those two guys a few more times just in case that's it for them. And that's money in their pocket, too.
Yeah. No question about it. And that does matter in Chicago. And, it matters everywhere, but that's a big building.
I mean, I think your point's a valid one, Eck, in terms of, they're trying to show them respect. On the other hand, I also agree with Mike. You cannot get nothing for those two players and then let them ride off into the sunset unless – they've come to you and say, look, we just don't want to go. I mean, they can control it. We've seen that once before.
Right. What if this happened? What if this scenario happened? And I'm not saying it did, but I've been kind of led to believe, by talking to another GM, that this was possibly happened. But he believes this could have happened. Kane gives them basically just one team. Says, "Oh, we want to go to the Rangers," right? And he goes there, and the Rangers. They go to the Rangers, and they offer. They talk to Drury. That's the only team they talk to because they haven't talked to other teams. I know that. So maybe they do talk to Drury, right? And they talk to him, and then the Drury says, "Okay, Drury gets an idea, kind of has a perspective that's only one team because he's hearing the same things other people are hearing, and then he says that this is all I'm going to give you is this." And they say, "No, that's insulting to Patrick Kane, first of all, and it's insulting to us. We'd rather get the money from him for the rest of the year." And then Drury's sitting there with Tarasenko out there available and saying, "I can get Tarasenko for the rest of this year, and I can get Patrick Kane without giving up any assets next year." So it's kind of.
I don't blame Drury. I don't blame Drury at all for jumping at this deal. It was an uncertain situation with Kane. You don't know how bad this injury is. I mean, you get an indication of based on the way he's playing. But you had an opportunity to add a top 6 winger in Tarasenko, and I think he made a good move. So
I'm buying what you're selling, Eck. Just based on like you said, I did point out earlier that I was told that it was Patrick Kane wanted to go to the Rangers. That's what he thought. I think he thought he was going to go there. So that probably what did happen is Drury did call, and because it was clear he had a conversation. He probably called and said, "Look, I'm going to get Tarasenko. What are you guys thinking?" They probably laid out something, and Drury said, "That doesn't work for me. So I'm going to."
As you're saying this, Kevin, things are starting to come into focus for you a little bit. Some of the things that were told to me. So, say you're another team and you try really hard to get Patrick Kane. I know two GMs who tried to get who would really wanted to talk about it, right, and couldn't talk about it, and they said no. So maybe this is Chicago just saying from the beginning, Chicago knowing from the beginning that it was only the Rangers, and that's why.
Now that deck is cleared, you can go back to Patrick and say, all right, We tried, you tried, but it just didn't work out. We can't.
They will, I'm sure. They will.
Now, are you willing to open it up to other teams?
That's up to him.
Yeah, but there is one face saving here. If Patrick Kane announced he was having the, hip surgery, then they can just say, well, we wanted to work something out, but it's just hip wouldn't let him go. And
wouldn't that be the smartest thing to do as a pending UFA?
Pardon me?
Wouldn't that be the smartest thing for him to do as a pending UFA right now? Because
it depends if he really wants to try to go win a cup or not. I mean, I don't know where his head's at in that regard.
It depends on how bad is.
If it's a labrum surgery, it's 6 months. So it would.
We don't know what it is.
Having the surgery sooner rather than later makes more sense, right? Have it now.
It depends what it is for sure. Yeah,
we don't know what it is, but just watching him.
He's playing through it. We know he's playing through it. So
he's not the same speed or effectiveness. So
and he wants to. If he sucks for the rest of the year, not sucks, but it sucks for Patrick Kane for the rest of the year. That doesn't help him going into the market, right?
I don't think it's helping him now. Like I think that's the other drawback.
But again, if it's proven, if he has surgery, you just say, look, I was playing through an injury because I wanted to finish my contract in Chicago. That basically obviates any concern over the hip, presuming he's healthy after the surgery and his performance.
Because then people bring him in, they check him out with the doctors in the summer, whatever. They bring him in, they can look at him, and they can see, or you can get the doctors think that I'm 100% now, and I wasn't last year at all. So, man, 100% Patrick Kane, that's what I want, right? That's what I want to sign. And I've never once
35.
And this is you say they don't have the room for him, Mike and Jan, or Jan, but I've never once heard of a player that wanted to go to the Rangers at the rate that was the star quality that the Rangers said no to.
Only if he takes less, significantly less. I mean,
this is different. They're in a different spot. They're in a different spot that they used to be with star power. And look, Glenn Sader has always wanted Tarasenko. He got Tarasenko, and I don't know if just the name of Patrick Kane makes the Rangers better, to be honest.
Yeah,
if he wanted Tarasenko, he could have had him in 2010. He didn't
but nobody thought of him that way.
Let's start.
Okay.
I'm telling you, I was at the draft. And I'm telling you, when St. Louis took him, they were still taking a risk for what everybody thought Tarasenko might be. Sure, the World Juniors definitely boosted his value, but also he tore apart his shoulder in the World Juniors, and so you have to know that too. And so it wasn't always wine and roses like that.
Go ahead, Kev.
Well, I'm just going to point out, too, with regard to his salary in the offseason. Now, a salary in addition to being the amount of money that you receive is also people look at your salary as your worth. So maybe Patrick sees it that way. I don't know. But he has made more than $100 million in his career. He made $80 million on his last contract. Yeah. So he can afford to go in and he can be Patrice Bergeron if that's how badly he wants to play. He has the capability of doing that while others do not. Yes. So I wouldn't rule anything out with Patrick. I've known him since he was a teenager. People always talk about people's love for the game. Patrick Kane loves the game. I mean, really loves the game. And, he's the type of guy, if he had in his head he wanted to play for the Rangers, I think anything is possible with him. So
Kevin, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying this, but if the viewpoint is he wants $4 million, that's going to be very untenable given their cap situation, right? If he's taking a David Krejci or Patrice Bergeron type deal to come to New York, they can probably figure out salary cap. Again, we still don't know exactly how much the cap's going to rise, but it's going to be. They're dealing with a very tight cap with 3 guys got to bring back, 2 of them whose values have risen substantively this year compared to what they thought they were going to have to pay when the season started.
He could also sign a 1-year deal and renegotiate midway through that year.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, to do that.
Again, I don't know if he would feel that way. I mean, that's a hard read. I mean, again, he's made a lot of money, but money equals respect to some players. So, maybe he wouldn't do that. So I don't know.
I think he would.
Just a couple notes before we get into our proposed trades. It was interesting. A couple general managers held sort of their second half or post All-Star break, post bye week availabilities. Kevin Adams in Buffalo and Kyle Dubas in Toronto, and both of them, not surprisingly, sort of stuck to their guns in terms of what their point of view. Adams basically saying, we're not going to fast forward the, where we're going, the rebuild. we're going to stick with what's going on. But if there's an opportunity, he's still exploring options in terms of, players who have term on their contract. He doesn't sound like they're going to go after rentals, even though they're in the race. And Kyle Dubas said, if it's a rental, I'm not trading a first-round pick in 2023 or 2024. I'm not trading Matthew Nyes. But if there is, he's not keeping himself close to the possibility of, if there's somebody out there with term, and it makes sense, that I would, invest and not go all in, but sacrifice significant assets. So I don't think they've changed. I don't think either one of them have changed, and I don't think Toronto is gonna do anything, big swing. Elliot Friedman said that they have checked in on Timo Meier, but that doesn't mean that they are willing to pay the price for Timo Meier. And Kev, I find it hard to believe, and maybe I'll be proved wrong, that anybody will pay as much for Timo Meier than New Jersey. I keep coming back to that.
No.
Especially with Jack Hughes' injury now. Now they need a Meier more than ever.
Yeah, no, but I think the Sharks, though, if what we're hearing is true, Mike Pereira is just asking a little too much for everyone.
Right.
So, as we get closer, maybe that'll change. But, so many people that I've talked to just point out that Meier is the real value here because first of all, he's not going to be a UFA. So you have time to work out a contract with him. He does so many different things. And if you're a team that's really in the midst of a rebuild like New Jersey, it makes so much sense.
Yes.
So I'm with you. I think that could get done. That seems like a pretty good, fit. But I think he's a real high value there. So, but all I could think of when you see what New York gave up to get a guy that they, can't and won't and maybe don't want to sign in the off season, like what is it? What is Meier's real value? It's pretty high.
Yeah,
So,
it is.
Well, I mean,
It's high.
it's very high, and for a team like Toronto, who's up against the cap wise, the $10 million qualifying offer.
Everybody that I've talked to said forget the $10 million qualifier.
Yeah.
The contract will be signed long before then.
Right, but I don't think a team like Toronto is interested in signing Meier long term. And the way Elliot Friedman mentioned it is basically we would trade for him and worry about it in the summer. And worrying about it in the summer means they could qualify him and flip him someplace else and get back what they traded from San Jose or an equivalent amount. I mean, that's possible, but the problem is Meier could accept the qualifying offer and walk as a free agent the following year if he wanted to. He could screw the Leafs or
but the deal will get done before then.
Yeah, I hear the same thing.
I mean,
no one's going to qualify him.
I tried to talk to GM about the qualifying offer. He just laughed. He goes, he's the guy's going to get his money. He's not going to get 10, and the deal's going to get done. He said that's really not a factor. So
it's a factor only when I talk to somebody about it. It's a factor only in that he has a negotiating tech. He has a negotiating chip.
Well, he can if he, but I think he wants to get his money. Like I think he just wants a guarantee. I mean, we saw that with Bo Horvat.
Right, but if they don't qualify him,
the deal got done once he got traded. So.
Right. But then if they don't qualify him and they can't come to terms with him, then he's a free agent, right? So
correct.
That's the chip he holds. Like he has a chip there in terms of like people are in order to get the deal done. You're gonna have to work harder to get the deal done because you could.
I think that the deal will be figured out before the trade is actually consummated.
I agree with you. Okay. And there's a lot of Swiss players, remember, in Jersey, and
Heishier,
yeah, and I know Heishier has been pushing really hard for this. And so obviously he knows Timo, so Nico.
And it makes a lot of
they
sense.
definitely know each other.
It makes a lot of sense for them.
They played together. So
Nico, to put the Meier thing in better perspective than I did before, nobody's going to make the deal unless they know they can sign him.
Right.
It's as simple as that. That's why the $10 million thing doesn't make any sense. So
yeah, I agree with that.
All right. Well, our proposed trades. Ack, we'll go with you first. The Boston Bruins.
You go with me first, man. Can I go with Buffalo first?
Okay, go Buffalo first.
I'm still thinking about Boston.
That's fine.
I've been working so hard on these things. I know who they're going to get, but I don't start because I know who I'm going to give.
I'll go first.
I'm sorry, but I've been working like crazy with
Pat,
this.
why don't you go with Detroit first?
Yeah, I will go with Detroit. I need a little help from my draft expert Russ Cohen, though.
Yes.
What kind of progress has Reed Schaefer made for the Oilers?
I mean, Schaefer's a good player. He's a good power forward. He's probably third liner.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think Bertuzzi is going to end up with the Edmonton Oilers. So I'm moving Tyler Bertuzzi to the Edmonton Oilers. I really feel like they feel pretty strongly that they got things going. He just gives them one more edgier player. Bertuzzi hasn't scored, only a couple of goals this year. He's been hurt. But the last game he played, I didn't see last night's game, but the game before that is the first time he's looked good. So I don't know. They thought they were going to get, a nice package of a first round pick and everything. I'm not sure they're going to get that, but I wondered if the Oilers would give up Shea for Bertuzzi.
He's a safe bet for the NHL. He's a really good player.
Yeah, it is. So anyway, that's the deal I'm going to make for those two teams because, I think the Oilers are all about now, and I think Bertuzzi's a now kind of player. And so, to me, my read on Schaefer is like, I didn't know where he fit in the line projections, but the third line guy, I thought maybe was the second line guy, but I think maybe the Rebels would want somebody who's a little closer to being pro ready than another draft pick.
Russ, you go with either Montreal or Ottawa, whichever one you want.
Ottawa one's the quick one, so I'll do Montreal. That's a little more complicated. So for the Montreal one, they're going to trade Christian Dvorak before his no trade kicks in, and they're going to trade him to Colorado, and they're going to trade him for what did I put here? Hold on, I got to read my own writing. That's always bad.
It's like hieroglyphics.
It is like hieroglyphics. I know what it was. They were going to trade Dvorak to Colorado for picks, and I didn't write down the picks because I looked at cap friendly.
Well, I would say at most a third round pick.
I think it was a third. I think they had a third. I think I was looking at third and fourth, and I think they had a third. So I was going to say it would be a third. Yeah. And
how does that help them?
It helps them because I'll tell you how. Newhook's 39% on faceoffs. Dvorak on the third line is way better than that. Newhook can play the wing. Dennis Malgin now plays nowhere. That sure is up a lot for them.
Yeah. Okay. I'm buying it.
The only thing is that it doesn't address their number. I'm assuming it's in concert with another move because that doesn't help their number 2 center situation. And I think if they were trading with Montreal, they would want to trade for Monahan if they don't get Taves. But
Monahan, Dvorak's a better number 2 option than Monahan at this stage of Monahan's career.
Really, you think so?
Oh yeah, Monahan's not doing anything.
Well, he was hurt.
Well, he was doing something.
He had played well for a while earlier this year, and then he kind of hit a wall again.
I would rather have Dvorak because I know I can depend on his faceoffs. Monahan was never the best faceoff guy anyhow, and now I don't know if I can depend on him just in general.
And if Colorado and Montreal are trading, I would always suspect Jonathan Drouin going, but who knows? Go ahead.
He's in Comper at number 2 anyhow, which is fine.
They don't seem to think so, but okay.
Oh, whatever.
I'm having a tough time with the Sabres prospects, but I'm going to do my best here.
Okay.
Okay. So as far as who's
I know Sabres prospects, so tell me.
I know they're going to go after Brock Besser in Buffalo, and I also heard last night that that they consider going after the goalie, who just got healthy.
Demko.
Yeah, Demko. That would be a major deal for Buffalo to pull off both of those players. I don't know what it would take to get them back. I don't know if they can. I'm not saying they're going to do it either. I'm not going to say that. I'm not saying they're going to do this. These are just players I heard. I from Vancouver. I've heard they like Lindgren a lot in Vancouver. I know the prospect there, right? Matt Lindgren, I guess it is the Sabres prospect. Am I wrong about that?
No. Isaac Rosen?
No, I know. Yeah, I know that. I know who he is too.
Hold on.
I just sworn it was Matt Lindgren. I thought it was. I had written it down. I was going through my notes.
Matthew Savoy, maybe.
No, I know Savoy too. I know this guy. Yeah. No, I wasn't. I'll look it up.
I mean, okay, let's just say this.
It's a prospect.
No, there is Matt Lindgren. I don't really know him that well, to be honest. He's a defenseman.
Okay, yeah, that's the name that they said to me. At one point, I heard it.
Let's just say this: if I don't know him, he's not that big of a prospect.
I think he's a 2022 draft pick, right, Russ? He's a defenseman.
Yeah, he's a 2022, and I really don't know him very well. I don't.
Right.
Yeah,
and Russ doesn't know him. I sure as hell don't. But let's just say this: if they're trading for Besser and Demko, nobody's Quinn or Peterka or Rosen or Kulich. All these guys would be not that all four of them. I'm saying like a couple of them would have to be in the deal. That's a major.
Quinn. I'm sorry, Quinn. Yes, I had written right down here. I'm sorry, Quinn was one of those names that they were interested in too. So yes, that is another name because this was when I was doing my research for the other trade for the guy who went to the Islanders. I'm losing my mind.
Well, Russ, given what you know about the Buffalo system, and you, Michael, would you rather have Demko, or do you think Devin Levy could be Demko in another year or two? Or
I'm going to take my chances with Devin Levi. It'll be a couple of years. Yeah. But at this point, I'll take my chances because I'm not going to lose Quinn.
The problem is right now, and I know there are some people that I know are big believers in Luukkonen. I still am not. I mean, he's had a good month. I don't know whether they're ready to rest their laurels on him. And really, Comrie is not good. He was signed as essentially, they hope he would be a stopgap starter. Yeah, he's not. He's a backup. Craig Anderson's going to retire. Everything is on Luukkonen. You can't depend on Levi because he's coming out of the NCAA. So at least it's going to be a year, probably two. So they have to find a gap goaltender. And Demko is, I think, under contract for three more
years after this year. I think.
So, and I think he's a good goaltender. It just sounds like he wants to get out of Vancouver.
He is. He's a good goalie, but I don't want to give up Jack Quinn, so I wouldn't do it.
Right. Now, it's funny because Kevin stepped all over me when it came to my Tampa one because I had Bertuzzi going to the Lightning with the.
That's just as plausible.
Yeah, with Detroit retaining 50%, and I had a prospect Gage Consalvis and the Lightning's 2024 second round pick going to.
Even Consalvis, I don't know much, so don't look.
He was a 2020 draft pick, and he's scoring at a pretty good rate with Syracuse right now. So he's 21 years old. So I'm thinking, and I believe he was there when Lalonde was there, but I'm pretty sure he was there when Yzerman was GM. So he would have some knowledge of him. So that's why I put him in there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that having a previous connection with Bertuzzi is really going to be crucial to moving him because he's had such a bad year. So you got to kind of have a history of knowing what he can provide.
And Blashill there,
right? Correct.
And the Canadian aspect, which I heard again today from Elliot Friedman about Bertuzzi playing in Canada, the vaccine situation that's still somehow complicated by him being on a Canadian-based team. I don't understand it, but he's saying it's problematic. So that's why he said it's more than likely he's getting traded to an American team, but who knows?
I'd love to see him write that out. So would I.
So would I. Do you have Boston or do you want us to skip?
Yeah, no, I got Boston. Boston's going to trade a 4th round draft pick next year to the Flyers for a 5th round draft pick the year after that. That's it. There's no reason Boston should make a trade.
Come on.
I looked up and down. I tried to come up with something like you gave me a.
They're looking for a left shot defenseman.
Yeah, but so McCabe possibly from Chicago, but he's a left shot defenseman that everybody's talking about. That's possible they could get him. He's got something, but I don't think that from Boston. I mean, you look at their lineup and who they're going to give up. It's not going to be anybody out of their lineup, obviously.
No. It's going to be a prospect. It's going to be a prospect.
Maybe it's a prospect, second round or 3rd round pick for Jake.
It'll be LaSalle or Lowry. Those are their two better guys. By the way, I do have notes on Gage Gonzalez. I had him as like a 3rd line center. He is a good all around 2-way guy.
Right.
Well, I wouldn't do much if I was Boston. Sorry.
Yeah, they. I think they're going to be aggressive too. They feel that they've, they got all their chips in, so they want to push even harder for it. So, they're going
to bankrupt their farm system. I've spoken to people; they said that's no question. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, they're really going to kind of go all in. So,
because I talked to somebody who said that that they love their team so much that they're afraid of messing up the chemistry of the team.
No,
Well,
their farm system,
I mean,
not the team.
I don't think one guy disrupts your chemistry,
Yeah.
especially if you bring in a big guy. I mean, like they were talking, Patrick Kane. They've been talking Chikrin.
Right.
They've been looking at elite players. Like, imagine that defense if you added Chikrin to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing about the Chikrin thing, and I think it was from Jimmy Murphy, was that potentially Grzelcyk would be going out in that deal.
Correct.
That would sort of shake the chemistry because Grzelcyk's been there for a while. But I think that more than likely, if they can add somebody just to the existing group and not subtract from it, then that wouldn't exactly shake up team chemistry. I think they're going to make a move because I think they not that they have to because of the league's best team, but this could be it for Bergeron. This could be it for Krejci. Strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely would like to clear out cap space next year, but that's not going to happen. I mean, there's no point in trying to do that. Obviously they want to bring Bergeron and Krejci back, and they might have to give them a little bit more, but who knows? With them,
they might be willing to take just as much as they're taking right now. So
it might be, and that's perfectly perfectly. I haven't heard them being as aggressive, but it's interesting, Kev, that you have. So,
Kev, the Florida Panthers. Kev, the Florida Panthers.
Oh, yeah, the Florida Panthers. Okay, I got help from Eklund on this. I couldn't, after I got that, I sent a couple of emails out trying to talk, and nobody seemed to quite know what the Panthers were up to. So, but once Eklund threw this name out, I had actually heard that earlier in the month, and that's Edmondson from the Canadians.
It has to be a defenseman.
It has to be a defenseman. I just didn't know where to go with it, but that is a very good name because I do remember hearing that, and knowing his value in the marketplace, and there are several teams interested in him. You're going to have to give. They want a first round pick, but I think you can get by with the second round pick. And yes, the Panthers do have one left, and then Ludwig Janssens. Is going, who's an agile defenseman. That's the deal I'm going to make, and then Edmondson comes back to the Florida Panthers. So
okay, I think that's very possible. Very possible. Russ, you did Montreal, so Ottawa.
Right. So this one's going to be a little boring, but it's going to be Travis Hamonic and the Tampa Bay 4th round pick that they have to Calgary for Dylan Dubé. Because Dubé has a year left on his contract. They probably won't be able to sign him. And this way they get Hamonic back, and he plays what Sutter likes and gives them a better chance on the playoff.
I think this is the second time that Russ has traded a player twice. I'm pretty sure he traded Hamonic the other day.
No, I have not.
No. Oh, you traded Hamonic? Okay.
Yes, I traded him.
There you go.
And I'm going to trade somebody for the second time with this deal because I take Kyle Dubas at his word that he's not going to trade he's not going to trade somebody for a rental unless it's somebody of major impact like Ryan O'Reilly, which I think Ryan O'Reilly would be of a major impact for Toronto. So if Ryan O'Reilly doesn't re-sign with St. Louis, which is there's still talk, I think that the Leafs would trade their 2024 first-round pick and Roni Hirvonen, who is their second-round pick from a couple of years ago, who's having a very good year in Finland, for Ryan O'Reilly. Now, if Ryan O'Reilly signs with St. Louis, I think they'll still trade that 2024 second-round pick to either St. Louis for Ivan Barbashev or Anaheim for Maxime Comtois. The one I think is the most likely.
You can get Comtois for that. I don't think you can get Barbashev.
I think you can Comtois because you know what, Russ? I don't think Pat Verbeek is qualifying him next year.
Right. I don't think you can get Barbashev for that. And I do. Can you say the O'Reilly trade over again? Because I was scrolling through something.
2024 second round pick and Hirvonen.
I don't know. I don't know. That's close. I don't know if they'd accept the second though.
Well, I don't think he's going to. I don't think he's going to trade a first.
Yeah, I don't know if you're getting O'Reilly because I think somebody else might trade a first to get O'Reilly. I think that's
and that's very possible.
Yeah.
But and if they may
it's a good offer. It is.
They may get outbid for O'Reilly, and then I think the fallback would be one of those other guys because Comtois, especially, he's an RFA, and they could hold on to him for another year or two, and he's making $2 million. He's not having a great year, but he's the type of player that I think they need.
He's a good plug-in player. I think he's fit.
So
that's a good one. It's a really good one.
Okay, so let's do our Super Bowl picks.
All right. Yeah, let's go for it. I'll let you guys go first because you guys know more.
I'll go first. It's fine.
I was right about both. I was the only person right about both the conference finals. I want to throw that out there. But anyway, there you go. Thanks. All right, cool.
I've been watching the Patrick Mahomes thing intently because basically the spread on the Super Bowl, everything on the Super Bowl betting wise is running on Patrick Mahomes' ankle. It's all working off of that. Looks like he's probably 80-85%. That's good enough for me. I know the Eagles are the better team, but the better team doesn't always win. Hurts has never been to the Super Bowl. Sirianni has only been an assistant. So while they have a couple of Super Bowl guys, they have a lot of inexperience. I'm going 24-21 Kansas City.
Okay.
Kansas City, that's who I'm going with as well. It's funny, but I agree with Russ. The Eagles are the better team. But I'm going with Mahomes. It's kind of the Willis Reed type deal. Everybody's talking about it, and that one play he made last time where, and well, there were a lot of plays when he just had to throw, and you could see he was in pain, and it just seems like too good a story. So I'm going. And I'll take 31-28.
Okay.
Okay, Mike.
Okay, I'm sort of going the opposite way, and I said this to Russ a couple days ago. This matchup smacks to me as very similar to what happened with Kansas City and Tampa a few years ago, whereas Mahomes was debilitated by plantar fasciitis. He was slowed down. He couldn't maneuver, and as the game got along more and more, it got worse. And that's what happened against Cincinnati. He was great early on. And in the third and fourth quarter against Cincinnati, he was practically immobile. He gutted it out, and I give him all the credit in the world. But with Philadelphia's pass rush, which is much, much better than Cincinnati's, I think he's going to wither under that pass rush. And I think, I think Russ is concerned about Hurts in a Super Bowl against an experienced Kansas City team is valid, but I do think that the defense is going to limit Kansas City, and because Mahomes is not the Mahomes at 100%. So I'm going to say 27-17 Eagles.
Okay. I'm kind of with you, Mike, on this one. I mean, listen, here's the thing about I always have my gut and then what I think is going to happen. So, and when they're aligned, I'm really confident about it. What I think is going to happen, what my gut's telling me is that everything's pointing away from the Eagles, that this is going to be it. They're going to lose. But when I look at it just logically from watching, the games I've watched at least, and also knowing that Mahomes is injured and knowing that seeing what the Eagles just did to a quarterback, two quarterbacks 2 weeks ago in San Francisco, who weren't injured but ended up not being able to both not being able to play. I think that this defense not being as good as Kansas City's defense, or San Francisco's defense being better than Kansas City's defense. I think the Eagles have the best. I know they're better on both the lines. All their lines are offense and defensive lines are better than Kansas City's, and that
defensive definitely. Offense, it all depends. I mean, remember you've got a guy with a torn groin who can go out at any moment.
I mean, I think
not Brown. The older lineman. Now I'm forgetting his name. Lane Thomas. Lane Johnson, something. Lane
Johnson.
I mean, none of these Eagles played. I don't think Randy Reed, or maybe a couple of them did, right? But
Graham may. I don't even think Graham did. I don't think any of them did.
Nobody.
Did the center play for Randy Reed? Kelsey?
No.
Kelsey, no. All right. So they're making a big deal of that in Philly, of course, because they will.
They're always going to say Andy Reid stinks, and that clearly isn't the case.
Obviously. He was just really hard to deal with in the media. Media hated him, so he was a real jerk.
They just didn't like the way he treated his post game.
I get it. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I think Hurts is going to be the MVP of this game. I think Hurts is also going to be motivated by the fact that Mahomes was just given the MVP. Okay. I think that also plays into it because
that's fair. But were you not worried? Yeah. Like you talked about the San Fran game, and it's true. San Fran has the best defense in football.
Yeah.
But they had no quarterback. Had Brock Purdy even been able to throw a ball. Like, again, they went to a guy who was like, you might as well just put him in the USFL at this point, whatever that other league is, the USA League, Josh Johnson, and they didn't necessarily trounce them. I mean, it took them a while.
They pulled away at the end of the second quarter.
Yeah, but there was a time where if they'd have made one play, San Fran, they were in the game.
My feeling was that San Fran wanted to run on the Eagles, honestly. That's what they wanted
to
do.
But that wouldn't have been their game plan. That was what
But Russ, Kansas City's defense, is not anywhere close to San Francisco's.
I agree.
And they have, I think, 3 rookies in their defensive backfield. So
they do.
So that's
the thing I think is really interesting is this, like, and I'll say this, I've said this before, is like, you always want to look to see, like, there's the media day. The media day, I was watching a little bit of the media day. And, I mean, the Eagles' star power versus the Chiefs' star power is not even close. Like, the Eagles have 6 or 7 guys that everyone wants to talk to, and the Chiefs have maybe 2.
Yeah, but the 2 that matter are Mahomes and Kelsey.
Right. Those are the 2 that they want to talk about.
They're the 2 best at their positions in football.
Sure. And the Eagles' Kelsey is very good at his position, too.
Yeah, and he's older, but he's still really good.
But then you have the couple of great defensive players that the Eagles have. You have 3 good or 2 really.
I'll tell you what about Darius Slay. When he wants to play, he's great. He has his ups and downs, though. He's not like a lockdown sure thing in the defensive backfield. I don't love him because I feel like his game goes up and down.
Now you think if he's going to want to play in the Super Bowl?
And you have Brandon Graham talking a lot of crap, who's 100 years old. He's a nice guy. I like him as a guy.
No, I mean, they're not flawless, and I think they have this team is better than the Eagles team that won the Super Bowl.
I don't know about that.
I think they are.
Well, I think Hurts is better than
Hurts is better than Nick Foles.
Yeah, they're better receivers. They have,
but AJ Brown is hurt, so maybe
Brown's pretty hurt. I don't know.
Yeah,
they have a better tight end. They have better. Their receivers, I think, are about even with Brown being hurt. I think their defense is better.
Your defense is a lot better.
Yeah,
especially against the pass. Like against the pass, that defense wasn't very good at all.
Muskegon, yes, the Eagles' offensive line is number 1 when they're fully healthy. They're not fully healthy. Their best guy is.
Kansas City's not. Kansas City's defensive line is not the greatest.
And
it's actually okay. It's not like the Eagles, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
And we will pay special attention to the Super Bowl commercials. I've already seen a couple of them. They've snuck out on Twitter. And geez, this one with Steve Martin, the Diet Pepsi commercial.
I haven't seen it, so don't tell me about it.
I love Steve Martin, but I think it's weak.
I'm looking forward to the Jeffrey Ross roast for Mr. Peanut. I got a little info on that on sportsology.com. I do. It's on sportsology.com. We talked about it on an interview yesterday, but that seems good because he is the guy that does all the roasts for like Comedy Central. And
I'd prefer to see Nikki Glazer roast, but rather
I could have seen it already, but I want to see the New York Mets commercial live.
Yeah.
Because that is going to be a great fun thing for Mets fans to see that their owner actually bought a Super Bowl commercial for $7 million.
Steve Cohen, buy me.
$7 million, awesome. Zach, for fun.
That's fun. Why not? You got the money for it. And also we cannot forget the Puppy Bowl, which is this weekend.
Yeah, I'm kind of off Puppy Bowl. I used to love it.
You're off of it? No, man. Puppy Bowl still rules. Still rules. It's no question about it. Puppy Bowl is an amazing event. And that's your buddy. We interviewed him here. He was great.
But I'm going to make a bold prediction. There's a prop bet out there that who goes first, Budweiser or Heineken.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm going to make the bold opinion that Heineken is going to go first this time because I feel like Budweiser, no offense, because it's true in real life, is getting stale. I feel like Heineken's going to try and really make a power move here.
I'm going to take the field. I think it's going to be like Miller Lite or Miller something.
No, it wouldn't be Miller Lite. You know who it would be? Michelob Ultra. That would be the one, I think.
You're right.
Because that one has caught on.
I hate those commercials. My wife loves that beer.
I hate those commercials too. I'm with that.
Well, it could be that Busch Light Sarah McLachlan commercial.
There you go. Yeah, well, I think
that's a good one. That's a good one.
I mean, I agree with you, Russ, that there's not enough defense being played in the Puppy Bowl these days. But come on.
No, I used to love it. Now it's just like,
It's passe. It really is.
How can you say, Mike? Have you just literally
I've
tracked
watched the Puppy Bowl for 10 years. Okay, I've watched it for 10 years.
Yeah, but so you like it, right?
Yeah, but Mike's
Yes,
like,
but
look,
it's passe. It's sort of like, you know.
Mike would be like, the Basset Hound would score, and Mike would be like, I don't like Basset Hounds. I just don't.
Oh, man. Well, I'm not going to go off on your mic too much.
The Funky agrees with me.
What, he agrees that it's passe?
He agrees that it's passe.
Well, I mean, it's not like going to improve, but it's still a great thing. It's still fun.
It's a fun thing. Now, look, it's always fun. It's a fun thing.
I mean, it's not good. We're not looking to be like, there's not like some young, like, Connor Bedard out there coming up.
Yeah, but heck, what are you going to – you really should be watching Seattle Flyers, which is a 1:00 game. How are you going to watch that and Puppy Bowl?
I would watch the Puppy Bowl instead of that. I will tell you that right now.
Wow. Instead of the Flyers game.
I know, but Puppy Bowl is a tradition with my family, and we will all be here.
One last hockey note before we end the show. Lieber Hayek cleared waivers for the Rangers, and the Flyers have placed Kiefer Bellows on waivers.
Yeah. I don't think anybody wants Lieber Hayek, honestly.
Well, he's going to go down to Hartford now, where
Hartford
nobody
is
can
in
talk.
last place.
Where nobody can talk to him, Russ.
Yeah. They're horrible, so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Have a great weekend, folks. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Be safe. Enjoy your families, and enjoy the Super Bowl. It's going to be fun.